Hey there, YouTube. So in this video, I wanted to cover a common question I get, which is, I have a foreign entity, do I need a U.S. tax ID number? And the answer, like everything else in U.S. tax law, it depends, right? Every foreign company, if it wants to, it can apply for a U.S. tax ID number. There's no issues there. However, it's only in some circumstances where the foreign company absolutely needs a U.S. taxpayer ID number, and that's because there's something going on with the company where it needs to file a U.S. tax return. So we've got one slide in front of us, two examples, foreign corporation, foreign partnership. Let's talk about where it would need that U.S. tax ID number. So generally, foreign corporations are not required to get an employer ID number. That's the EIN, that's the tax ID number for companies, unless it needs to file a federal tax return or it needs to comply with some type of U.S. withholding tax obligations. Now, let's talk about filing tax returns. A foreign corporation, if it's engaged in U.S. trade or business and has effectively connected income, ECI, it's got to file a Form 1120-F. Form 1120 is a corporate tax return. Form 1120-F is a foreign corporation tax return for the U.S. Now, in order to file any tax return with the IRS, 1120-F is included, you need an EIN. So this is the issue. If you have a foreign corporation that's engaged in trade or business, it's got to file an 1120-F, pay the tax. In order to be able to do that, it first needs to get an EIN. So if we look at our example here, we have Fake Company Limited. It's a foreign corporation created in the BVI. Fake Company Limited operates an office in Miami. It employs some local residents there, and it sells products to customers in Florida. Given the activities of this BVI entity, it's likely engaged in trade or business in the U.S., and it has effectively connected income. So it needs to file an 1120-F foreign corporation tax return. So again, in order to file that, it needs an EIN. So the BVI entity has got to go ahead and apply for this. It's done by filing a Form SS4 with the IRS. You can do it via fax or U.S. mail, and within a few weeks, they'll give you your EIN. Now, let's talk about foreign partnerships. Similar type of analysis, right? So foreign partnerships generally not required to get an EIN unless it's engaged in trade or business in the U.S. So it needs to file a federal tax return, or it's got other types of U.S. withholding tax obligations. So let's look at foreign partnerships engaged in U.S. trade or business. If that is the case, then it needs to file a Form 1065 partnership tax return. The Form 1065 needs to include, obviously, all the required schedules that go with the 1065, including Schedule K1s for each partner. And then, if you have foreign partners in that partnership, so non-residents, the foreign partnership, in addition to the 1065 filing, needs to include 8805 and 8804s for all the foreign partners. And those are the forms where you report the allocation of ECI to non-U.S. partners. And again, the same principle applies. In order to file all of this, you're going to need an EIN. So the foreign partnership has to get an EIN to file the 1065. It needs an EIN to file 8805s and 4s and withhold tax and pay that to the IRS. Okay, so if we look at the example here, we have Fake Company Investment LP. It's a foreign limited partnership formed in the Isle of Man. LP has an office in New York where it employs people locally, sells products to customers in New York and elsewhere throughout the U.S. So given the LP's operations, it's engaged in trade or business. It has U.S. source ECI, so it needs to file a 1065 partnership return. So it files the 1065, it needs that EIN. In addition to that, the LP is going to have to withhold taxes on any U.S. source ECI that's allocated to non-U.S. partners. Withholding taxes are paid to the IRS, reported on Forms 8805 and 4. And then again, just to reiterate the issue here, in order to file any of this, you've got to have an EIN. If a foreign company files these tax returns without the EIN, the IRS will not process it. They basically put it into a shredder and send you a notice that says, hey, you didn't even apply with an EIN. We can't process any of this information. So don't find yourself in that position. Make sure you get the EIN first, then go ahead and file everything as required, and then you should be compliant. So that covers it. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next video. Thank you.